In this Idiot Atheist Reads Bible Verses, my question to you is, does Jesus support slavery? Does Jesus Christ support slavery? Now, obviously the New Testament does support slavery, obviously. Now, think about it this way. Jesus used parables in which he's using slavery in it. So obviously he had no problem with it, and he's supposed to be God, right? Well, let's start with Luke chapter 12. Let's see if I can... You go to King James Bible Online.org if you want to see these verses yourself. But here we go. Luke chapter 12, verse 42. And the Lord said, "Who then is that faithful and wise steward? From his Lord shall make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of meat in due season. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing." Of course, when it says servant, it means slave. Just so you know. Of a truth I say unto you, that he will make him ruler over all that he hath. And if that servant say in his heart, "My Lord delayeth his coming," and shall begin to beat the menservant and the maidens, and to eat and drink and to be drunken, the Lord of that servant will come in a day and the hour. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I kind of do screw up sometimes. When you're an idiot like I am, you kind of screw up. In a day when he looketh not for him, and at an hour when he is not aware, and cut him in sunder, and will appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. That sounds like you can lose salvation there, huh? I mean, it doesn't matter, because none of this stuff is true. "And that servant which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes." See, he has no problem with you beating your slaves. Jesus has no problem with beating your slaves. So don't let these Christians try to tell you otherwise. That's the Old Testament. That's the Old Testament. Well then, okay, so your God changes his mind then, huh? Now here we go again. "But he that knew not, and did commit things worthy of stripes, shall be beaten with few stripes." What that's trying to tell you is people like the Hindus and the Muslims and all these people who did not know about Jesus, and they're going to go to hell and they're going to burn for all eternity, but they won't suffer as much as people like in Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, countries like that should know about this Jesus and be on their hands and knees. "For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required, and to whom man hath committed much, of him they will ask the more." So don't let people tell you that, of course, that this Jesus doesn't support slavery and beating your slaves. He just said it right there and using it as a parable. He was for it. And the fact that he's pro-hell, pro-suffering for all eternity for finite sins. Oh, because you didn't accept the salvation. Come on. You think this Jesus is not a good guy. Okay, read the New Testament, read the Gospels. This Jesus is just as bad as his ultimate identity in the Old Testament. I don't know why people think otherwise. Read the New Testament. Read the Gospels. Read what this Jesus says. Beating your slaves, and he's okay with it. And of course, here's another part. Jesus the divider. Now this part, a lot of atheists get wrong. I am come to send fire on the earth, and will I, if it be already kindled. But I have a baptism to be baptized with, and how am I straitened till it be accomplished? Suppose ye that I have come to give peace on earth. I tell you, nay, but rather division. And I want to explain what this is supposed to mean. For from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The father shall be divided against the son, and the son against the father, the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother, the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. People see that and think, that, there's going to be hate and all this stuff. That Jesus is, trying to purposely divide people. What they're telling you is, when you become a Christian, everyone in your family is going to be against you. And those of you that are atheists, you know that when you come out as an atheist, your family tends to turn against you. And if you're in a Muslim country, though, then, of course, your family takes you to have your head chopped off. I just wanted to add that part there. That's all it's telling you, that when you become a Christian, people are going to turn on you. But that's true for any faith, or you decide, hey, this is a bunch of BS, I'm not going to follow this nonsense anymore, and then you just, hell with it. But again, getting back to the slavery part, because you always hear Christians say, But that was the Old Testament. That was the Old Testament. We're not under the law anymore. And I already did idiot Bible verses on these things. You can watch those videos. I don't need to rehash all that. But remember, it says several times, both Old and New Testament, practically the same thing. God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He changes not. It tells you that. Well, okay, he's for slavery in the Old Testament, for slavery in the New Testament. So does that mean he's for slavery today? I mean, think about it. The only reason why Christians aren't so pro-slavery anymore is because they were forced into the 21st century. A lot of what they consider moral, in this Bible will be considered immoral. The genocide and all this stuff. Because basically, theists, not just Christians, all theists, what they consider moral is wherever their God tells them is moral. Secular people, they consider what's moral is basically doing what is right no matter what someone tells you to do. That's why I've said before, and I'll say it again, and some of you may not like what I'm about to say, but it is the truth. Like people like Hitler and Stalin, they are not the most evil people. The people that follow them were more evil than them. Because Hitler, Stalin, Chairman Mao, Che Chavez, I don't know, I think it's Che Chavez. I know it's Che. And all those others, they couldn't have done nothing if people didn't follow them. Didn't think, well, this is a good idea, let's do it. And that's what religion teaches you, blind obedience. That's why people are, follow Hitler and all these other people. In my opinion, the Nazi soldiers should have been put to death. I mean, in my opinion, they deserve a slow, painful death. Same with Stalin's, all those people, like these social justice warriors. Look what they're doing and then look at the people that were following Stalin. There's not much of a difference, And same with Hitler. Their idea of freedom of speech was shouting people down. You don't let people speak. That was their idea of freedom of speech. They thought they had a right to do that. That's not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is allowing the other person to speak and then you debate them. Not trying to shut them down. But, that's what SJWs or something else, But here you got it. Again. And please watch my other Bible verses where I say that. Also, you can go to Matt Dillahunty. He did an excellent video on it. Excellent video. I don't remember the exact title, but just go to his website, Matt Dillahunty. Matt, Dillahunty. Matt Dillahunty. And then you can see him, because I think it's like God Man or something like that. He basically was going through his video, and the guy's African American and he's pro-slavery simply because the Bible is pro-slavery. At least it seems like he's supporting slavery. Maybe it wasn't, but Matt Dillahunty goes pretty much every single verse in this book that's pro-slavery. And I did a couple of verses myself. You should check out. But God doesn't change his mind. Well, if he doesn't change his mind, he was pro-slavery, pro-genocide, didn't believe people should be mixing with people that didn't worship him the way he wanted, Well, if he's still like that, kind of makes you think. And think about it this way. You got people say, well, you can worship God any way you want. You can worship this God any way you want. Well, according to these holy books, that's a bunch of BS. Either, God doesn't exist. But if he did exist, he's pretty specific how he wants to be worshipped. And if you don't believe you're not saved the way this book tells you to be saved, according to Christians, you're going to hell. Of course, if Christians are wrong and the Muslims are right, Christians are going to hell. Of course, the Jews are right, you're going to basically go to the land of the dead anyway, so it won't matter. But we're all going to go to the land of the dead. That's called the graveyard. You'll be in your grave, you're going to rot, and, unless you do like I plan to do and get cremated. And then, of course, eventually all the atoms in your body will be blown into space, and, and all that stuff. Form new stars and all that stuff. Who knows, maybe some parts of you will be new living creatures billions of years from now. You never know. But the Bible's pretty clear, It doesn't change at all. That Jesus has no problem with you beating your slaves. Jesus himself supported beating your slaves. Jesus supported it. Remember that when a Christian tries to argue otherwise.